Dema Jimden the Java Dajuma Yanda Mazo Besa. Rivana Shazun Dema Devaration Manjin. Given the Vakalo Juma Lana Meba Lata Menam Jet. Sanjay Jimden the Bejawa Shajan Tuma. Chazano Judo Jazu Jima Dema Jimden. The Java Dajuma Yanda Mazo Besa. Rivana Shazun Dema Devaration Manjin. Given the Kalo Juma Lana Meba Lata Menam Jet. Sanjay Jimden the Bejawa Shajan Tuma. Chazano Judo Jazu Jima Dema Jimden. The Shinshaba Jajuma Yanda Banzobe Sanja Riba. Shazon Deman Devaresha Banjiden Jimba Jibondi. Kalo Juba Lana Meba Lata Menam Jet. Sanjay Jimden the Bejawa Shajan Tuma Chazi. Chudo Jazu Shivu Kanze Kanya Zo Jetum Sajan Deno. Nani Jiden Deno Jojazon Teze Keba Jona Chaha Zelo Nanda Gunga Jodu. Ishe Jazu Sege Humbo da Taba Jiden Sumna Lameba Gombo Chonyi Jona Chaze. Senjo Demba Timenda Veje Sendo da Wajona Chaze. Dire Jona Siva Suma Jenyame Jenjen Jona Chaze. Gombo Tujeche. Tamje Kembe Demba Bo Sonam Yunden Jazu Jendishen Shana Chaze. Taben Deja Tewa Jungi Venye Son Letweje Chidu Tanam Joyo. Shinjo Jona Chaze Lo Tenye Tewe Lanya Lava Shinga Damba Yunden Gilanya Cha Zelon Diva Jinya Miji. Gawa Peso Zoba Jaranga Sene Yozo de Tene Sanje. Karmara Mamela Jumase, Sugar, Melamoda Jena. DJ Janam de Data, Sonam Dietam Jesse, Kovantum Jinja. Gadana Shiva Lobjube Sibe Sonet, one Jova. That's it. Or destroyed, the completely perfected, fully awakened, perfect in knowledge and become, so that no supreme guide of beings to retain. Teacher of gods and humans, to you, completely and fully awakened, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the secure from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the Wangongyan, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfecting knowledge and in good conduct, Sravakas, know of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, secure from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, Wangongyan, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfecting knowledge and in good conduct, Sravakas, know of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, glorious conqueror, the secure from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Men who supreme among humans, you are born on this earth. You paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I prostrate. With the pure bodies form supremely pure, with no motion like golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds. We know the best, to you I prostrate. With the supreme science, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior in great compassion, the teacher of all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one gone to dustness I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtues which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that Dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified in realization, who are devoted to the moral precept, to you the sublime community intending virtue I prostrate. Do not condemn non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. The star, mirage, flame of the lamp, illusion, trouble, or bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits, may sentient beings attain rank of all sin, subdue the flow of faults, and be delivered from motion of suffering, of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje Jala Soji Shalama Chanju Bado Dane Jazuji. Nagin Jazoji Beltonam Jia Dola Penja Sanje Dubaji. Sanje Jala Soji Shalama Chanju Bado Dane Jazuji. Nagin Jazoji Beltonam Jia Dola Penja Sanje Dubaji. Sanje Jala Soji Shalama Chanju Bado Dane Jazuji. Nagin Jazoji Beltonam Jia Dola Penja Sanje Dubaji.
I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Gede Pumba Dayana, Jada Jiva Jando Jiva, Gede Pumba Namne, Pumba Singing Memory. Danya Yuba Mayana, Dagi Yuba Kala, Dadan Dagi Shiva, Ziman Zimek. Ziman Zimeka, Tia Yuba Mayana, Ziman Zimeka, Kabeto. Nanda Shirin Yadama, Dadan Dagi Yamzana, Yawan Bagaji, the Ziban, the Kawase. Let on your Moseva Tara, let on your Monamdole, Teta Juban, Tomani Jakabu. Dawishinya Dajuja, Damesha Temple, Sanjanam Jadada, Dameka Michi, Jabajavando, the Simju, Dozo, Majabata, Chunin, and that song. Tamja Yanda, Yanda me, Yanda Mayini, Yanda me, Yanda me, Tene Sanjay. Shenishiva, Javanam Jumajova, Namdo me, Tateme, Tene, Kala Dina Kanjoma, Tene Rejetin, Teleshama Yishi, Jishim. Sanjay Denganam Jia, Dema to Junjo, Tunjima, Tateme, Chabam, Zozanja Major, Yadam, the Sevena, Razanji, Demba Mela of the Gay and other shirt of a Sheshavan that of the Jogi about Kangia, Dona Dinjo, no women of the Sonjo Sumba, Sanjay, Charles, I think we are on the page 79. As you know, this Chandrakirti, from the beginning, he was emphasizing the kind of, I think the root of all the good qualities, like Pratyekabuddhas, and Arhat, and the Sravakas, Arhat, and Buddha, and Bodhisattvas. So all kind of, drive from the great compassions. So that's why Chandrakirti is, from the beginning of this book, he was making a salutation towards the compassion. Then he kind of talks about three kinds of compassions: mere sentient beings, phenomena, and non-referential compassion. And the way of generating the compassions through reflecting upon 12 links and dependent originations on other. So 12 links of dependent originations, reflecting on one's own 12 links and dependent origination is for generating the renunciations. Reflecting on dwellings and dependent origination on the other is the way to generate compassions. So the first compassions through contemplating on the dwellings and dependent origination on other sentient beings. Once kind of generated the compassion, the great compassion, then that compassion is now specifically the focusing on like the suffering of the suffering and the suffering of change, the pervasive, the conditional suffering within the minute or the seconds that changes. So, and that, the second compassion phenomena. So then the second, and the third compassions, and kind of, again, specifically focusing on the very kind of the concept of the sentient being is just mere reflections, nothing but reflections, right? So, and also it kind of, talks about the sentient being is mere reflections. The suffering is also mere reflections. So then why? Because everything in the conventional reality, in the mundane, when we try to pinpoint on something, so we always use that as the reference, not the object, what you meant in your mind. For example, when you say pointing at a house, you have to point part of the house, or the color, or the shape, or the size, or the neighbors, things that by pointing at which always use the reference to referring to what you meant. So the what you meant, the object of what you meant is always constructed by the thought, right? So, so this is also every day, mundanely we use that. We kind of, the way we, perceive things, like pointing at the pictures, pointing at the picture, this is my grandmother, this is my great-grandmother, this is my friend and husband and sisters, the brothers. By pointing where there is no mother, there is no sister. And then pointing at the statues like this, this is the Buddha Shakyamuni, this is the Guru Rinpoche, this is something. So this is how the everyday we kind of, when we meant something, we always use the reference, right? So the first compassions is the referent, the referentials, sentient being, and mixed with the reference, like, normally we say, oh, here I am, pointing at my body, saying I'm here. And then we say, this is me. So this, the way you're kind of, your tradition, your cultures, your idea, your feeling. So using those as the reference to signifies or to refer what you are right now. Right. So so that what you meant, the object, the cognitive, the aspect, always absence in the reference. But the reference are making that cognitive aspect existing. So this is why Chandrakirti says, dependent arising, pratyeta samutpat. You are always, right, linguistically, physically, all the expressions is expressing expressing what is in your mind by pointing at the reference, right? So that's why I think, so that's kind of, pratyeta samutpat. Something happened to exist in your thought by depending on something else, right? So this is why it is, dependent arising. This is why things lacking intrinsic existence. Things are lacking intrinsic existence means the referential, I think like, and here this book used many times the term the designative kind of object, right? Designative object, and the basis of the designated object. For example, myself is the designated object, and this designated object is existing and depending upon my body. The body is the devoid of me, but it defines, it's referring the existing of myself by depending on body, short, tall, big, thin, right? So whatever it says. So the actual reference are already devoid of the object that what you meant in your thought. So pretty much, kind of, interpreted phenomena. So this is why the second compassion and the third compassions, the understands that how things really existing. So things are existing relatively, right? So compassions, generating compassion, then also mentioned about the awakening mind. Awakening mind. Now, when things are dependent arising, nothing absolute, nothing intrinsic. So, and yourself and others, right? All phenomena, they do not exist intrinsically, inherently. They do not exist by their own essence. It always exists, right? Conceptually, dependently. Right? So this is why, with that kind of, you're hoping, kind of, when your innate desires is always hungry for happiness, or always not satisfied with one happiness, kind of 1 day happiness or 1 week happiness. Your mind naturally always wanting the happiness, do not want pain or the suffering. So then awakening mind is saying, if you want happy forever, and what you have to do is you have to get rid of self-centered attitude, right? So self-centered, how you overcome the self-centered attitude is, knowing the self-centered attitude is the driving force, right? In the mundanity is a driving force to going after happiness. So now you have to get rid of the self-centered attitude and use the compassion, the vehicle of compassion, then you go after happiness. Right? So out of compassion, so due to the compassion of the force of the compassion, when you seek for happiness, and then you will, it is possible, very possible, of being happy forever. And for that, what is your goals? The goals means now you wanted to be enlightened, fully enlightened, for the sake of all sentient beings. So you make the Buddhahood, and so there's a two kind of, attaining Buddhahood is being blessed forever, and the Buddha himself, herself, Buddha itself is is the kind of total dedication for every sentient beings without exception. Right. So there's a two, we call TRAINEE. TRAINEE means two meaning. Two meaning means fulfilling your desire, your own desire, and fulfilling the desire of other sentient beings. Right. So two things: fulfilling your own desire and fulfilling the desire of other sentient beings. So the Buddha is the one. Buddhahood is the one that fulfills the desire of one's own, fulfill the desire of other sentient beings. So, out of compassions, we generate the awakening mind, or enlightened mind, or aspiration, the aspiration that to attain the Buddhahood. So, aspiration to attain the Buddhahood, not for oneself, for other sentient beings. So, which means for other sentient beings, wanting to attain Buddhahood is the only key that can fulfill the desire of one's own. So that's why awakening mind is required or needed in this practice. And then compassion and awakening mind to, as a prevention of the afflictive emotion, the prevention of the obstacles for attaining Buddhahood is wisdom realizing emptiness. Right. So the root is the compassion, and out of that root or the seed, the plant is the awakening mind, and the prevention is the wisdom realizing emptiness, right? Preventing the obstacles. So as a result, that the tree of the enlightenment. Right. So if you reach the Buddhahood, then that will fulfill the desire of one's own and other. Right. That is the seed of that is the compassion. Right. To perfect that path, to succeed the path, to attain the Buddhahood is the wisdom realizing emptiness. So this is how the during the ordinary Bodhisattva's path of accumulations, path of preparation. This is what we practice, Bodhisattva Mahayana practice, and then attain the first bhumi. Right? The first bhumi is called ultimate bodhicitta, ultimate awakening mind. Ultimate awakening mind means ultimate here is emptiness. Awakening mind here is kind of direct realization of emptiness, and that is associated with the great compassion, and what do you call, underpinned with the awakening mind. So this is why the noble Bodhisattva's wisdom realizing emptiness is called ultimate awakening mind. Right? Not just simply realizing emptiness. Realization emptiness is also in the Hinayana path, and is the same, realization emptiness. So the ultimate awakening mind is not just simply realization emptiness or direct realization emptiness. It is backed up by the great compassion and bodhicitta. This is why noble ultimate awakening mind. So, so as a kind of so then what is the quality? What are the qualities of the ultimate awakening mind? So this will overcome the four binding factors, delusions, right? And this ultimate awakening mind is the one that makes, a Bodhisattva's noble being and certain to attain Buddhahood. In the relationship with reason and Tibetans, so in the so it says in the root text is, he is born into the lineage of the Tathagata as well. He has utterly purged the three binding factors. Such a Bodhisattvas uphold the state of supreme joy and has the power to shake 100 worlds. So four qualities. First, kind of certainty of attaining the Buddhahood. Second is overcoming or eliminating the three binding factors. The third is uphold the supreme joy, the tremendous joy. Right. And then the fourth is has the power to shake 100 worlds. So this is why ultimate awakening mind. So ultimate awakening mind. And then so ultimate awakening mind is, and also its realization emptiness. It's the realization emptiness. So, and what is the difference? The Hinayana Arhats realization, direct realization emptiness, and noble Bodhisattvas direct realization emptiness. So what is the difference between these two? And then this is first awakening mind, ultimate awakening mind, has outshine those two arhat by the merit, by the power of their compassion, power of their bodhicitta. Right? This is like the son of the king. The day he born, he kind of overpowered, or he is outstanding among the chief of the ministers, because they're born in the royal family, right? So everybody, all these ministers, the big kind of those, they bow to the son of the king. So in similar way, through the collection of the merit, by that they can outshine the two arhats. So the first bhumi and the second bhumi and third bhumi and the fourth bhumi, even fifth and sixth, so they only outshine the two arhat through the merits, not through the intelligence. So then the question comes, when does this Bodhisattvas outshine two arhats? Then when this Bodhisattvas reaches the seventh bhumi, agona far, the name of the seventh bhumi, agona far. So ring the song, right? When he reached that, not only outshine the two arhats through the merit, they also, it also outshine the two arhats through the intelligence. So then, and what do you mean by the outshine through the intelligence? And then there are many different commentaries, different masters have a different explanations. So Lama Tsongkapha says this has to be kind of outshone the two arhats through the intelligence, means the power of the wisdom. The power of the wisdom means not just kind of emptiness. And wisdom realizing emptiness, that is, wisdom realizing emptiness, the power of that. So from the seventh bhumi, so they gain the special qualities or unique qualities. They within the short moment or within a few minutes, they can go deep, right? In the meditations, not just imaginations, is how's that? The term that we use, fuse in the taste of emptiness. Fuse in the taste of the emptiness, right? So directly observing in the taste of the emptiness within the few moments, and then they can come up from that meditations. Again, go back as much as they can do. They can do as much as possible, right? So this kind of quality, unique quality, is not in the sixth bhumi and below. And some also master says, yes, this from the gona far, the seventh bhumi will attain or will achieve the quality called signlessness. So they'll no longer, right, need to follow or the study in the sutra. There's no need follow any indications. So, and then what is that, what kind of, this seven bhumi realization emptiness and two arhat direct realization emptiness. So the emptiness, their realization emptiness is equally their realization emptiness. They, and then here what they call is the seventh bhumi, which is meditating with emptiness, that called, how's that? End point, yangabhata, perfect end point. So perfect end point. And this is also mentioned in the preface to the Buddha Muni. So there's a Kuncho Jejen, and this is, you are free from the six constituents. So the Buddha's mind are no longer follow habits, no longer follow the imprints of the imprints or the habit. So the constituents, like constituents of the wind, space element, constituents of the wind element, constituents of the fire element, constituents of the water element, constituents of the earth element, constituent of the consciousness element. The 6 constituents. So the ordinary sentient beings always react through the habit, and their mind kind of follows the habituations, and they're also influence the element. Sometimes you forgot elements remind you, right? So if you have a habit of angry, right, and you get angry, and sometimes you forget angry, and your elements kind of, provoke you. So this is the time you'd usually get angry. So, so the element and the consciousness, they kind of, influence each other. So that's called constituents. So Buddha's mind is free from 6 constituents, and Buddha's mind, and then the sentient beings, ordinary sentient beings, we always kind of stick with these constituents. And 2 arhats, so they're called nyangele devas. They they have made some kind of habit or likelihood in the peace. So, so Buddha's mind, not in samsaric constituents, not in the habit, some kind of a desirable peace. So and how Buddha's minds abide, how Buddha's mind abide with or abide in. So then it's perfect endpoint. The Buddha's mind is every second, right, inseparable from the absence of intrinsic existence. So not in samsara, not in nirvana. And what is that? Not in samsara, not in nirvana. So perfect endpoint. So this is why we call Buddha as Tathagat. So always, there is no even a second Buddha can distract it, or Buddha can, mind get influenced by anything. So Buddhist minds in every second inseparable from absence of intrinsic existence. So that's why they're perfectly endpoint, who bides in with perfect endpoint. So come nam the medembas, and yangela devil meneba, a yanga one the tala nebas. So Buddhas abide with perfect endpoint as it is. Right. So and then
does it mean Arhats abiding more of nirvana side?
Yeah, Arhats, they have kind of sense of likelihood or sense of, as I mentioned last class, they made a home in that peace. So they made a home in the peace. So for them, and how do you know they have this kind of comfort zone they have created in the peace? So those arhat, when they start follow the Mahayana path, so they have very hard time, right? So their mind is more kind of addicted in meditating in the peace. So they have to put a lot of effort to generating the compassion and bodhisattvas. So they are very, very addicted in the peace. They could not really get out from it.
So the peace they somehow generated is something different from complete realization of absence of intrinsic existence. Something else.
Yes, to Arhat, they have perfectly generated the realization emptiness. And this, their realization emptiness is the kind of, perfect antidote for the afflictive emotions. So no afflictive emotions, even there's no seed of the afflictive emotions, but they have sense of kind of liking, sense of being there, right? They create home in that peace. So they have hard time to get out from it, to to generate, to feel the suffering of others. For them, it's very difficult. So, says sentient beings, ordinary sentient beings, have feel home in the condition of suffering. The Arhats feel home in peace. So Buddha, not in samsara, not in nirvana, he is in a perfect end point. I think it's similar. Sometimes I feel like this is my own kind of interpretations. In India, the Ramakrishna, he also mentioned that because of some of his teachers and talking about the ultimate phenomenon, emptiness, and very much emphasizing emptiness. And because of that, they have some of his teacher has kind of reject the practice of the deities, because these are all Mahamaya. These are all just illusion. And what is not illusion is that emptiness. So Ramakrishna says, I feel more, I find this is the perfect standpoint, is being in the middle, not too much in the emptiness, not too much in the conventional reality. You always stand on the, what do you call it, doorsteps, not in house, not outside. So the Ramakrishna there says, I think this is kind of, there's some kind of indication he really knows perfect dependent arising, right? And don't kind of go after conventional realities, or after means do not grasping on the conventional reality, and don't fall back in the nihilism, right? Nothingness. So you say, ultimately, nothing really exists. Conventionally, everything exists. You just have to stay there, right? Don't step one before the conventional reality. Don't step back in emptiness. Just the dependent arising. So I think there's some kind of there's some kind the understanding of what is the perfect end point. So why you call Buddha Tathagat, Tatha as it is. Buddha, all minds always remain a reality, with reality as it is. No home, no homeless. So Buddha has no home, no homeless. When there's home, there's too many bills. Homeless, and again, it's cold, too hot. So this, what I have explained is in this, the term that it translated in English, which is the perfect end point. So the perfect end point means the yang tabetas, perfect end point. What is not perfect end point, right? And creating home in the condition of suffering. Creating home, a sense of home, feeling home and peace. So I'm going to read the explanation of the commentary state, right, from this. Explanation of the commentary states that there is exertion on the seventh ground because there still exists the thought, I will enter the path. Deveya. This is what the commentary says, I will enter the path. Yet, because the Bodhisattvas does not engage with sign, such as the reading and the listening to the teaching, such as the sutra, he has attained the path of signlessness. In contrast, those on the sixth ground and below, as well as Sravakas and Pratyekabuddhas, lack such signlessness. So thus the Bodhisattvas outshine Sravakas and Pratyekabuddhas through the intelligence on the seventh ground. This is the commentary, says why from the seventh ground outshine the Pratyekabuddhas and the Sravakas, Arhat. So here the Lama Tsongkapha says, be that as it may, I feel. So Lama Tsongkapha says, I'm not going to comment on that, right? This is also one of the qualities in this seventh ground. But when we say outshine through the intelligence, I feel that differentiations has to be associated with the realization of suchness. When it says outshine through the intelligence, now this intelligence has to go with wisdom realizing emptiness, not the sign or signlessness. This too, as I said, this too must be made in the terms entering into the rising out of suchness. So in this way, Lama Tsongkapha says, now outshine the two Arhats through the intelligence, not because of the simply realizing emptiness. So made in terms of entering and arising out of suchness. The perfect end point. So the perfect end point, as will be explained below in the chapter on the seventh ground, it is on the ground, and above that, Bodhisattvas is able to enter into and arises out of the cessations. The perfect endpoint within each and every moment of cognitions. This is not possible on the lower ground. The cessation here in the Prasangic school, cessation is the emptiness, no different from emptiness. So from the seventh ground, the every moment, this is not possible on the below ground. This is which my precious teacher says. And it is an excellent explanation. on the paths where one engages suchness by means of imagination, given that in the such meditative concentration on emptiness, one's mind and the suchness have not fused into single tapes. It is not difficult to enter and arise out of such meditative state within the short moment. So Lama Tsongkaphas saying the entering and arise out of emptiness or the cessation with imaginations is not difficult for the first ground Bodhisattvas, second ground Bodhisattvas, and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth. So here, this is not without imagination, directly observing in emptiness within the minute, right? And next minute, he can just come out to the meditations.
When we say the Bodhisattva enters in the first ground, that means he already achieved the Arya state?
No.
Oh.
Bodhisattvas, noble Bodhisattvas, first ground, second ground, third ground, fourth ground, fifth ground, even the sixth and seventh has not really eliminated all the afflictive emotions. They haven't really get rid of even seed of the afflictive emotion, but they are much. Their mind, their knowledge is more capable than our true Arhat, which they have abandoned all the afflictive emotions.
And then the direct realization of emptiness is also at that point, at the seventh ground. Or...
So here we the top and the point is how this first ground, second ground, and fourth ground, and fifth, and this sixth ground. So how this Bodhisattvas are greater than two Arhats. Two Arhat is the liberated being. They have no afflictive emotions. They do not possess even the seed of the afflictive emotions. Why this noble Bodhisattvas, although they haven't really get rid of all the afflictive emotions, and why they are greater than the two Arhats. So then it says, from the first ground to the sixth ground, the greatness is the kind of, through the accumulation of the merit, their compassion and the Bodhisattva makes them greater than two Arhats. And from the seventh ground, so they are greater than two Arhats through the intelligence. Right. So now the intelligence, and then in the commentary, the Chandrakirti's commentary. So this commentaries kind of try to, explanation of the greatness through the intelligence is saying this seventh bhumi is sightlessness. These seven bhumi do not follow, right? We always follow to perceive something, to know something through the sign. Right? That's why we always say, do you understand what you meant? Right? Do you understand what I meant? So what you meant is your picture that you create. So you want other to have the same picture. So that's why we keep asking, do you understand what I meant? Right? And then he follows that and he said, oh, now I understand. Right? So with sign to sign, the language is kind of language delivers or expresses the sign that you have created in your mind. So you cannot just through the sign to sign communicate. You have to express the sign that you have, right? The indicator that in your mind, you have to express through the language. So that's why we always use the sign to know things, to perceive things. And we also to make others to understand, and you are trying to how say other person to have same image that you have imagining, right? So the sign to sign, then even the emptiness, Bodhisattvas, we always through the sign. So when you read the books, by reading the books, from the book, what it gives you is all the indicators, the sign, right? So from the sign, seventh bhumi is no longer a need to follow any sign in order for understand things. So from the seventh bhumi is a signlessness. So this is what the commentary explain about the greatness of the intelligence of the seventh bhumi. So Lama Tsongkapha says that yes, this may be the correct, but when you say intelligence, means here the intelligence has to be associated with the wisdom realizing emptiness. And from this, you have to explain the greatness of the intelligence. And when it comes to the wisdom realizing emptiness and the greatness of it, then he says, all the seventh bhumi or sixth bhumi and the below and the two arhats, they do not have the quality of the mind, right? They can, within the minute, and directly absorb, right, the fuse in the taste of the emptiness, and then next minute coming up, and then next minute again go back and then deep in the emptiness. So this kind of the strength of the wisdom is not in the two arhats, not even in the sixth bhumi and the fifth bhumis, like that. So Lama Tsongkapha was a little bit saying that the commentary, the master of their commentary, the Chandrakirti commentaries, yes, you have explained, right? Your explanation may be correct, but when it comes to intelligence, Lama Tsongkapha says, I'm not going to make a correction, but maybe this is my... So Lama Tsongkapha said, this is the kind of, has to be a little change there. That intelligence means wisdom. So sign or signlessness is not talking about emptiness. So anyway, and also from this kind of explanations, outshine through the intelligence starting from the seventh bhumi. So here we're saying this is implying the wisdom realizing emptiness, right? Wisdom realizing emptiness is always required for overcoming the afflictive emotions. Without wisdom realizing emptiness, there's no way you can overcome the afflictive emotions, which means in the Hinayana path, also, Hinayana path, there is realization emptiness. So many of the great masters, some of the masters, the Sutantaka school, mind-only school, medieval autonomous school, they says the wisdom realizing emptiness wisdom realizing emptiness is not required for overcoming the afflictive emotions. You can simply overcome the afflictive emotion through the selflessness of phenomena. So Lama Tsongkapha in the Prasangic school saying, because these two sutra and the Buddha mentioned in the sutra, first bhumi to the sixth bhumi, they are like a royal family. So in this way, they can outshine all the ministers. So which means not through the intelligence. So the wisdom realizing emptiness, and not only in the first bhumi of the Bodhisattva, so Arhat too have the wisdom realizing emptiness, right? Before they attained Arhat, they already have this wisdom realizing emptiness. Yeah, so lower ground, and so this is what my precious teacher says, and it is an intelligent, excellent explanations on the path where one engage suchness by means of imaginations, given that in the such meditative concentration on the emptiness, one's mind and suchness have not fused into the single taste. So the first bhumi, second bhumi, third bhumi, they can meditate within a minute and come out. So this meditation is kind of, with imagination. It's not really deep observing in emptiness. So deep observing in emptiness, the fuse into the single taste is from the seven bhumi, they can go deep, fuse into the single taste of the emptiness, and then second minute they can come out from the meditations. So it is not difficult to enter and rise out of such meditative taste within the short movement. But on the Arya stage, where one's mind has fused with suchness, like water poured into water. So two Arhat and those seven Bodhisattvas, right? They too meditate in emptiness, like if diffused with suchness, like water poured into water. So that means they can go deep in the meditation. They all have the same quality, but for them, like within a minute, they have very difficult to do that. Right? So mode of entering into and arising out of emptiness within a short moment is extremely difficult. You might be wondering, why are we discussing how on the seven ground Sravakas and the Pratyekabuddhas are outshone through the intelligence, when the context here is descriptions of the quality of the first ground? Reply, the fault of conflating context does not apply. The presentation in this text on the first ground and so on are based on the 10th ground sutra. And the sutras clarifies that one abiding on the first ground outshines Sravakas and the Pratyekabuddhas through his conventional awakening mind and not through his ultimate awakening mind. Then, to help dispel the qualm, so then the question automatically comes, when, right? First bhumi can outshine two Arhat through the conventional awakening mind, not through the intelligence. Then automatically the question comes, when do this Bodhisattva can outshine two Arhat through intelligence? So therefore, the 7 bhumis. Yeah, they call it the house intelligence. Need to explain in the first bhumi. Just well then, from the what ground does Bodhisattvas outshine other through his realizations? It explains that he would outshine the others through his realizations, starting from the 7th ground. So this statement from the sutra is presented here in the Chandrakirti text as well. So you should know that the context is perfectly appropriate. So don't don't think it's why the first bhumi and bringing up the 7th bhumi to explain.
Joshua, can you explain in this context the difference between conventional awakening mind and ultimate awakening mind? It almost sounds like a conventional awakening mind is the realization of emptiness using imagination, and ultimate is something you directly.
Yeah. The ultimate awakening mind is directly realization emptiness, directly observing in the emptiness. Conventional awakening mind is kind of the aspiration to attain the Buddhahood. Not conventional awakening mind is not really focusing on the emptiness. It's just concept of Buddhahood. So I wanted to attain the Buddhahood for all sentient beings. Sake of all sentient beings, right? So in the conventional awakening minds, the one side of the mind is thinking about sentient beings, and another mind is to attain the aspiration to attain the Buddhahood. So that's the conventional. So ultimate awakening mind is just kind of deep meditating in emptiness. So the question is, if the deep meditating in emptiness is just wisdom, why you say it's awakening mind? Right? Deep in the meditation also practices in the true Arhat and the Hinayana path. Why the Bodhisattva's deep meditation in emptiness is awakening mind. So saying that this is Bodhisattva's deep meditation in emptiness is underpinned with the great compassions and awakening mind. Right. So this is something, the wisdom realizing emptiness is a backup by the great compassion and awakening mind. This is like, and a sharp knife with strong shoulder. So right. So if your sharp knife, if your shoulder is not strong enough, so how sharp it is, maybe it can cut some branches or leaves or grasses, right? So that's why Manjushri is the gestures, holding the knife. It's like, so this much muscle, shoulder strong muscle, and this wisdom. Yeah, so then the page number is 18, right? Concluding the implication of this statement, this has 3 parts. How the 10 ground sutras demonstrates that Sravakas and the Pratyekabuddhas possess the realization of phenomena as lacking the intrinsic existence. The sources that substantiate, right, this point and rebutting, yeah, and objections raises against these presentations. So the many of the masters, minority school, even in the middle way autonomous school, so they think two defilements: the obscuration for the liberation, obscuration of the knowledge, two, right? So obscuration of liberations means afflictive emotions. So obscuration of the the knowledge is not necessarily is afflictive emotion. So in the Prasangic school, the obscuration of the liberation and obscuration of knowledge. So the obscuration of the knowledge is in the Prasangic school is the this is not kind of all the afflictive emotions are obscuration for liberations or obscuration of liberation. Like so, the other school of thought, the obscuration of liberation and obscuration knowledge means one is the grasping the self of person is the obscuration of liberations. The grasping or misunderstanding or misconceptions of phenomena are obscuration of knowledge. So Prasangic school, misconception of phenomena, misconception of the person is same. The both are afflictive emotion. And this, so Chandrakirti says, in the Prasangic school, the grasping of self of person, the grasping of self phenomena are both afflictive emotions that understands this implied from the sutra. Sutra says, from the first bhumi and only outshine the two arhats through the merit, not through the intelligence. So which means all these arhats already have the wisdom realizing emptiness. If they do not possess the wisdom realizing emptiness, from the first bhumi, not only outshine the two are through the merit, they're supposed to be outshined two are through the intelligence, because they do not have the wisdom realizing emptiness. So this is a kind of debate between different school of thoughts in the Prasangic school. So how the 10 ground sutras demonstrate that Sravakas and the Pratyekabuddhas possess the realization of phenomena as lacking intrinsic existence. This is twofold, explaining clearly the intent of the commentary's author and how this is also a standpoint of the guide to the Bodhisattva way. So I'll just maybe I'll just without reading, I can explain. So emptiness. So in the Abhidhamma text, so they're called mundane view. Sometimes there's a mundane perfect view or mundane view. So when it comes to the mundane perfect view, means those good culture, the very positive culture in a mundane, and what is this? This is the sense of shame or restraining in engaging in negative activities is a mundane perfect view. And right? So this is and then what is the mundane perfect view? Like the believing in the law and the cause and effect. So they're also known as a mundane perfect view in Abhidhamma texts, believing in law and cause and effect. And negative actions, consequences are negative, right? Positive actions will bring the consequence of the positive result. So this is what we call mundane's perfect view. And the mundane's now mundane's path. So mundane's path means non-Buddhist, right? Non-Buddhist school of thought. So through the single-pointed meditations, trying to attain the liberations, through the single-pointed meditations, trying to overcome the afflictive emotions. So those are mundane's path. And the supermundane's path means trying to attaining liberations, overcoming afflictive emotions through the wisdom, not single-pointed meditation. So non-Buddhist school, and like Samkhya school, and the what is the Sanskrit for that? Yeah. And the Jainism, and then the Vedantika. So many of those schools of thought. I think the Buddhists, the aim is same: liberations and overcoming the afflictive emotions, right? And then what they found as a path for the liberation and overcoming afflictive emotion is a single-pointed meditations. And how you generate the single-pointed meditations then says, first you have to study about the faults of the samsara. And you have to contemplate many times the faults of the samsara and the, good qualities of the Bhagavan, right? So Bhagavan is kind of free from afflictive emotion. Bhagavan is free from all the obstacles. Bhagavan is free from spell, like that. Samsara is called perishable, conditional suffering, and kind of, they also call, the Ram, which is always the Ram, the cycle of the samsara that is always governed by afflictive emotions and the karma. So Shira Nambajas. So one is the perfect peace, one is imbalance and misery. So you have to think more about this, right? Then this is samsara, the desire ram, and then the form ram. So you exercise, kind of mentally you exercise how the desire ram is miserable compared to the desire ram, form ram is how is peaceful and more bliss. So mentally when you exercise, then you may develop some kind of desire to free from the desire and a desire to free from the cyclic existence. And then and then how do you really kind of get out this from the cyclic existence? Then there's this single-pointed meditations, or sometimes they call Om. The Om is the object, single-pointed meditations. So, and Om, so when they come to the Om, this is Om is the sound, which is, not born from any causes and conditions. The Om is always ever-present kind of they're ever-present with every phenomena nations. And Om is the permanent, it says. So, single-pointed meditation on Om, and the letter Om or sound Om. So they try to meditate on Om. So that is the one, and there are many different kind of the practice single-pointed meditations. So sometimes for the trainees, they train the mind. They stay in the dark in the cave of the tent or anything dark inside, and kind of make small tiny hole. Through that you can see the light, and your eye and your mind all single-pointedly focusing on that light. Other than that, the kind of light that, other than the light, everything is dark. There's nothing, and your mind, train your mind to abide on that kind of drops of the light. So there are many single-pointed meditations. The most famous is Om, right? Then some says, so I am particularly a devotee of Shiva. So for that, Shivam. So the sheep sound. Om Namah Shiva. So Om Namah Shiva, verbally by saying it, and again, and when you have said many times verbally, and then your whole breath is making the sound. This is Om Namah Shiva, Om Namah Shiva. So these are their practice, kind of single-pointed meditations. And what their aim is to overcome the afflictive emotion. Aim is to stop the cycle existence by reciting Namah Shiva, Om. So the Buddhist says, no, Namah Shiva or Om, how many times you say, if you train your whole breath to make that sound, right? As long as there is no understanding of the reality, you cannot be free from afflictive emotions. So there's examples. There's one kind of there's a story of great practitioners who meditate on the single-pointed meditation for years and years, and he himself kind of he sit under the tree for many years, and his hair grows, right? So so what do you call here?
Just grow very long.
Yeah, grow very long, and then he kind of when you come out of meditation, you kind of sense of pride that, oh, this is how long I did meditation. Then he is kind of first he developed a sense of pride on that, and the second he noticed that his hair. So there's kind of the squirrel or the mice that make a nest, and he get angry how disrespect this animals making a nest around my hair. And the first pride, second get angry. So this is the clearest sign that so this single-pointed meditation is almost, although you have spent years and years, so right after the meditations, what you generate and sense of pride and then angry. So So that means your single-pointed meditation haven't even not really kind of touched the afflictive emotions, haven't really shake up the afflictive emotions. So yeah, this is called mundane path, right? Through the mundane path to trying to overcome the afflictive emotions. And single-pointed meditations also sometime, right? Sometime when you're very successful in the single-pointed meditations, you may be filled after that. So there's a story, another the kind of great practitioners who kind of successfully meditating on single-pointed meditation for many, many years. So then he thought, now probably I have, overcome or eliminates all the afflictive emotions. Maybe I'm free from afflictive emotions. So before death, he see the sign he's going to born in some place. So he said, now I said, my second thought is there is no liberation, because I can see the sign that I'm going to born again. So he says the liberation is non-existence. So there are this kind of many, many stories because they are all follow the mundane path. So super mundane path is because the afflictive emotions is afflictive emotions are kind of driven by the misconceptions. Misconception means misperceived, misknown, misunderstand, kind of superimpose, right? Not knowing the reality, and not kind of here is not just it's not just mere not knowing, it's actively, right, misunderstanding or misconceiving. So this is the root of all the afflictive emotions, anger and attachment. So wisdom realizing emptiness is the only way to eliminate the afflictive emotions. So wisdom realizing emptiness has a two kind of side of the one, empty the intrinsic existence, empty the absolute and objective. And another kind of the flip side, or I don't know, is another side of this aspect is things are always existing but dependently. So objects, they do not make themselves existence, right? So concept of me is not exist by itself. Concept of me exists through the because it is the concept, through the thought, by conceiving it, and when you conceive something, you always use the reference. So what you have seen, the body, what you feel, the feeling, what you what you understands, right? What you understand, what you feel, what you see are the reference for the thought to create mental construct. So in this way, I and my exist. In this way, number one and number two exist. Numbers all exist through the concept, right? So this is why and numbers are conceptually exist. Therefore, one bill can be 20, right? One bill can be 100, one can be 20, right? So numbers, me and mine, and they and we, right? And different concept of differential is also conceptually exist. So me is not exist by itself, and they are not exist by themselves. So you made it them, right? Prior to that, you make yourself. I exist, therefore, that they exist. So you, right? First, you see yourself, right? You see yourself. Then you compare. You bring your body with rather someone much taller than you, and because by relying on, by depending on the body which is taller than you, and you make yourself, I am short, and then you don't want to feel short, and you have to go to someone who's more shorter than you, then you can see yourself is taller. So it is your being short and tall is not by your own essence. You did not make yourself. And your tall and short is also not brought to you from others. It just happened to exist or arises in your mind when two things happen. So this is, so lack of intrinsic existence means anything, right? Anything like a pot, tables, they don't really decide it by themselves as a pot or a table. So you see, sometimes, I saw the France, the bills, dollar bill, and the United States dollar bill. When you compare, the France is more durable, plastic, something. So who makes this more valuable and others less valuable? Do they paper by themselves says I'm more valuable than others? No. Their values, numbers, right? Concept of me and others, all conceptually constructed. So conceptual construct means conceptual, fabricated, right? Based with something. That very base is kind of devoid of the object that you're referring. This body is not me, right? This breath is not me, but when you breathe, I breathe. Yeah. So that's why so in order for end the cycle of existence, or in order for overcoming the seed of the afflictive emotions, without wisdom realizing emptiness, right? Any single point in meditations is not capable or not able to overcome the afflictive emotions. So mundane path, perfect mundane's view, super mundane's paths, right? Okay, any questions now?
I have a question about, I wanted to understand if we have the first ground to the sixth ground, and going back to the 5 paths, how do they fit
Going back to what?
the path of accumulation and preparation?
Uh-huh.
How do those 6 paths fit into? Do they come before or after? I mean, after. I mean, maybe after, I guess. Or are they part of the path of accumulation, or is that?
The path's like a stairs. You just step first stairs, and the second, and third, and fourth, and fifth. So the path starts from the path of accumulations, and then goes up in the path of preparations, and then after the path of seeing. From the path of seeing, they call noble path. And here in the Mahayana, noble path starts from the first bhumi. So that is called ultimate awakening. Right. So when it comes to the Hinayana, and they are also say the path of accumulation, path of preparations, path of seeing, path of meditations. So the path of seeing in the Hinayana path, although it is directly realizing emptiness, but it is not called the ultimate awakening. It's the direct realization emptiness, but not the ultimate awakening. So the Mahayana, the Bodhisattva's first bhumi, the path of seeing, is called ultimate awakening.
Right. And then the first bhumi for the Hinayana is?
Hinayana, they don't use that term, the first bhumi. So they have the stream of entry, once return, never return, and no more learning.
So for Mahayana, it's the bhumis start in the path of seeing.
Yeah, bhumi start from the path of seeing. So within the path of seeing and the path of meditations, then they count the 10th bhumi.
Path of meditation is
Yeah.
the 10th bhumi.
The path, no. Path of seeing is the first bhumi, and from then, after the path of seeing, path of meditations. So these are all bhumis. So when the bhumi, the 10th bhumi, the bhumi has ended, and then the Buddha, the enlightened beings. So the bhumi, why they say is the bhumi, the title of the bhumi means is the land, is the soil, which holds the trees, plants, the animals, the human being, all things growing and holding. So similar, they use the term the bhumi, right? And then all these paths, because they're continuously growing, right? Giving rise. So when the Buddhahood does not count as the bhumi.
So in the path of seeing, are there 10 bhumis in that, or in the path of meditation? I mean, I'm not real sure.
What?
So the bhumis, the 10 bhumis,
Mm-hmm.
The path of seeing is bhumi 1.
Yeah.
And then does that all in path of seeing is just one bhumi? Or?
Path of seeing is always the first ground, first bhumi.
Uh-huh.
After that, path of meditations all are second bhumi, third bhumi is like that.
Thank you.
So path of seeing and path of meditation means, so the path of seeing means, why it's called path of seeing? Because you have seen, seen the reality of the suchness, the face of the suchness that you haven't seen before in an ordinary path. So before you haven't seen like this ever. So starting from directly perceiving emptiness is started. So this is what they call path of seeing. And also this is the why the path of seeing is. So path of seeing we call is also Srava means so you are you are able to bear, right? You are able to bear the object that you right, an object that you're newly seeing that you haven't seen ever before. So so this is why they call it path of seeing. So what you have seen, and you have to meditate on that again and again. So the path of meditations.
Helps put it in kind of context.
Any other questions?
So the obscuration for knowledge of Prasangika is the stain of afflictions.
Yeah. So Prasangic school, the grasping of self person is the obscuration for the liberation. It is the afflictive emotion. And the grasping of phenomena, right? Grasping of phenomena, the self of phenomena, also afflictive emotions. And then if these are afflictive emotions, what is the obscuration for knowledge? Then there's the obscuration for the knowledge in the Prasangic school divided into two, active and inactive. Right? Inactive like the kind of imprints. Right? The stain or the imprints are obscuration for the knowledge, which are inactive. And active means constantly, like, the appearing of truly existing, appearance of the truly existing. So here, in the Prasangic school says, these are obscuration of knowledge. So here, the kind of, the grasping of truly existing and appearing of the truly existing, it's two things. So grasping of the truly existing are the afflictive emotions. So things appears truly exist. Things appears by themselves is not due to the afflictive emotions. So the Buddhist mind is free from the grasping of truly existing, and the Buddha has no any appearing of things exist by their own essence. So Bodhisattvas, noble being, Arhat, they all have things that, like illusion, like phenomena. These things are coming into existing by their own essence. So, like even the Arhats, this is Arhat has the stain of the afflictive emotion. They do not have any afflictive emotion, any delusion, but they have a stain. The stain means there's some kind of habit, some kind of residue. Like as I mentioned, when you smash the garlic in the grinder, right? So smash, and then you wash it, right? Even kind of what is it called, the dish soap, right? So, but after you just clean it up, you just kind of wipe it, and still the smell there's the garlic. So these are kind of the stain. So Arhat, they have this kind of stain, and that's why the one of the example, the active the stain is they call. Sometimes Arhat has a bad habit, so mumblings and Arhat, because some Arhats, because they are very young age and Arhat, but they have the kind of habit of jumping, climbing trees. And the old Arhats, they have mumbles. If tea is not full, they mumble. So if someone pour the tea in their cup, if you pour half, because they have a habit to fill the cup. If you not fill the cup, they will mumble. So it's not because they have anger, they're out of habit. So habit, I think many of those habits is something that, as I mentioned, constituents of the element. So our minds also not habituating the mind itself is also kind of influence on the elements. So some of those habits may go away when the person is died and reborn, and then habit is no longer there, because there's some, that's what we call constituents. Your habit in mind, your habit in elements. So I think in Tibetan now we don't see much that habit before, like 80s. So we have, when we see that our teacher, when we meet our teachers, when teacher, if you kind of run into your teacher in the kind of in the market, so we always just sit like this. So this is all time. There's a lot of things we see, but now probably no one is doing that. So this kind of a habit is gone from the generation changes. Right? Sometimes, yeah, when we see teachers or the parents, we look down on our feet, and then you do things kind of scratching or something. Nowadays, we don't see those habits. So there's some kind of culturally influenced or kind of the emotionally influenced. So there's some kind of habits. So the obscuration of the knowledge, this, as I mentioned, this is like the imprints. It's not like a physical habit. It's mental. So like anger kind of leaves the two kind of the two kind of consequences. The consequences as the happening result, the consequences of the habit. So if you get angry many times, so it will train the mind. It will kind of influence the mind. It's habituate the mind to easily get angry. And then the consequences of that is and the less friend, no one. So it's people would always kind of go away, try not to get closer to you. So those are the consequences. So some kind of physical consequences, and then there's some habit, like what habit in experience, habit in the consequences.
When we say constituents, this already means that has a habit in it.
That kind of is probably, I'm not going to say this. You are putting the habit in the air or moisture. So you have the habit with that wind. You can have this habit with kind of moisture with the body. So there's some kind of habit with elements. So those elements called constituents of the element.
That's different from element itself.
It's a kind of outcome element. These are outcome elements. Outcome elements means elements which are under employing of your emotional. So the elements that which are already have a job. So the emotional is employer. So the elements working under the emotionals. Those are called constituents. Right? So like constituents of Republicans, Democrats, right, they are more likely to follow right, that parties. So the elements also have this kind of likely more tendency. So each thought, when it manifests, it also brings the new air. Right? Each thought brings with air. So that's why when you get angry, people says, breathe, deep breathe. Inflations from the angers. I think sometimes the fear really kind of deflate in the air, so it makes person smaller. Yeah, and Tungor, that's they said, yeah, the Kalachakra. Niti Chigdong to get legends. Niti Chigdong means 21,000 and afflicted the wind motions. So one day, so we have this 21,000, the air that caused by the emotions. How are you, Larry? Are you doing well?
I've been having a very difficult time. I don't know if it'll last forever or a year or a month. This extreme nerve pain, and it goes off several times a day. And when it's going off, I'm yelling in agony and pain. And it's the chickenpox virus. When you get older, about 1 out of 3 people get this thing, and it's called shingles. But so I'm having a very difficult time. The pain is excruciating. It happens while I'm sleeping, while I'm awake, and it can come any time, but several times a day. I've been trying this yogic breathing that I just read about today. I don't know if it'll help or not. I'm trying this, but the trouble is, as I'm trying the yogic breathing, it's harder for me to, unfortunately, listen to what you're saying. But I mean, once it goes off, it like hits my left eye and travels up my. The pain travels up my head, and it's like a wave. It just intensifies. So I don't know. Maybe the people who have shingles, about maybe 15% have this, and I read different things. Some people say in a 3 months. Some people say years. So I don't know. What's going to happen with this, but it's excruciating. So my whole life is radically changing right now. There's these very strong medicines that doesn't seem to really help me or decrease the pain. And if you take the strong medicine, it can change your personality. And so it's a tough one. I don't have any easy answer at this point.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So maybe kind of walk a little bit, just you can distract your pain, to see things go out a little bit.
Pain is so excruciating. When it happens, I can't stop by walking. Sometimes I'm just squirming all over the place, and I'm trying to take refuge. Just keep taking refuge when this happens. That's what I try to do.
Okay. So we will stop here. Chanju Semjo Rinpoche, Majeba, Geji, Jeba Nyamba, Mebanya, Kone Kodo Pebbles, Tony Tawa Rinpoche, Majeba, Geji, Jeba Nyamba, Mebanya, Kone Kodo Pebbles, Pama Simjan Tamjin, Dada Denju, Yendra Tamje Tadu Tong, Chanju Semba, Kana Suju, Tadago, Monam Juju, Karera Bego, Shemasu, Pendan, the Roma, Joe. May the
precious
May the body mind yet born arise and go. May the born have not declined to increase forevermore. May the precious mind realize in emptiness and not yet born arise and grow. May the born have not declined to increase forevermore. Due to all this merit, may all Father and Mother sensing beings have all the happiness, and may all the lower realms be empty forever. Wherever the Bodhisattvas sit, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by seven mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. O powerful and thinking that remain in this world until sunset happens.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Be well, Larry.
Be well, Larry.
Sounds tough.
Yeah, this is